Hello there, and welcome to the Realm of Ideas is Free to All. My name is Bruce Gemmell. I am here with our international correspondent Penguil, who's just back from being on location in parts unknown, and we'll be joined by Julie in a minute. So Penguil's kind of been out and about, kind of keeping up with the the issues of the day, kind of doing a really good job, kind of trying to bring truth and justice and the American way. I think that was Superman. In a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way, which I love that. I kind of like. And then actually actually no, it's the 7th. Yesterday was the 6th. That was the day that America discovered France. It was back in 1944. America discovered America discovered France on D-Day in the Normandy invasion. And hey P, hey Peely, hi P, P's coming, and Peely's on. Hey, you started? No, we started at 2 o'clock. We always start at 2 o'clock.
What?
We started at 2 o'clock. She said we started early. No, it's 2 o'clock.
Who are you talking about?
Peely, she's right there. Okay, so I have your drawing thing out. So get your drawing thing. And we have our Tease Tea, our great sponsor, Tease Tea. I have Jasmine. Julie has, oh, look at that, amazingly. Jasmine.
Well,
All right. Okay.
I'll be
Yes.
there in
Well,
1
okay.
minute.
And we're going to have chocolate, right?
We are.
Now, Mr. Spock says, was it Jamaican Gold cacao, 80%? 80% is steep. Well, again, it depends. We'll see. It's like, yeah, but again, I look at it this way. If there's anyone who has any chocolate information, we'd love to hear it. Now, what's today's topic, you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked. Today's topic is called the importance of abstraction. Now, why is it important? Does the chocolate has shrooms? No. All right. So our number one fan has asked. Okay. So this is a job for Penguil. Penguil, find out. Okay. So Penguil's going to look into it. So this again is like for those who are new. And thank you to all our new subscribers. We are closing in on 350. And I learned an interesting thing today. Actually, some people had told me about this, but I didn't believe it. But then I was contacted by someone who who asked me if I wanted to boost my impact. And I guess for a fee, you can actually get, I don't know, some kind of artificial boost of your influence. And I kind of thought that kind of goes against the principle of what we're about.
Choose.
I mean,
we have either 70 or 77.
70. I'm feeling a bit kind of like sissy. Anyway, I kind of like, all right. So I kind of thought that was kind of a little bit, and they say, oh, everyone does it. It's a common thing. This and that. I'm like, I look at it this way. If there's only 2 people that listen to it, and it's Peely and Mr. Spock and a couple other stragglers, that's cool. Because I look at it like I'm doing this because I need to do this to kind of get the ideas out. But I'm really not looking for, I'd rather the influence come organically. And that's kind of, to me, more important. But again, Julie's doing such a stupendous job. And I think we got 7 subscribers in one day, which to us, I mean, well, not to me, because I couldn't get 7 people in a year, is, I think, Julie's record.
Probably.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so the idea is, what are abstractions? Why are they important? And what is pertinent about them now? Now, I think what happens is, we talked about the organic age, and we talked about, I had a kind of side conversation, or at least a comment with Mr. Spock, and he talked about the idea of what was this age to be. And I think for me, one of the things that would make this age valuable, if it was not so preoccupied with what it expects it should be able to be doing, and just enjoyed the investigation. I feel that one of the things that I've kind of gleaned from reading other people's work, and what keeps me coming back to certain people is that desire for the points of the speculative aspect where things basically were pursued because of their interest, not basically because there was a desire to kind of understand something. I've always felt that there's a difference between the, eureka moment and the, oh, what's that moment? The, oh. So I think a lot of times, we depict investigation as we're looking for something that we believe exists, almost like we lost our car keys and we believe that we can find them. We think we left them. They might have fallen down behind the back of the couch. And then you're like, Eureka, my keys are here. I find much more enjoyable that investigation that kind of comes up with provocative things that could conceivably have value. So for me, I was saying that if we are to enter into an organic age, I believe it would probably be a romantic age, and that romantic age would kind of have a healthy speculative aspect. But anyway, back to our topic. The topic is we talked about the fact that abstractions are these kind of things where you take something and you parse it out. You take something that's essential as a stand-in for the totality. So this idea of extracting something and removing something, taking it from its source. So it becomes independent, that it stands on its own, but it still is referential in the fact that it may not be it still refers to something from which it came. So we think about these things and we kind of see these things as something that can sometimes be important because I think they're timely. Certain abstractions at certain times kind of give you a sense of what time they belong to and how that time may or may not have had a consequence and why it had a consequence. So I think that's the kind of thing it's almost like finding, hints of what is to come, and by using it, of seeing how certain things happened in a previous time. One of the kind of easy examples is the fact that there was a time when we had what I would call it like an an artistic abstraction in the 20th century, and I think there was a kind of geometricization where certain things, because of their inherent geometric consequence, basically became the essence or the stand-in for other things. It's happened both in music and it happened in art. But I think it was certainly something that we saw in the fact that the non-representational aspect, making it more of kind of a spiritual, or maybe even more correctly, an emotional connection to those things that were painted. So even in the case of many of the artists like Picasso, Kandinsky, and especially my hero Van Gogh, we did see the fact that there were certain things that even amongst the quotidian, as one of Julie's words, were in fact very much in terms of the emotional abstraction. So with that said, getting on to the most important part of the show, what's new in Julie?
Well, quite a lot, it
Good.
turns out. So I was working on my new
Let me get
drawing.
a sip and then I'll hold that.
Sure, no problem. I was working on my new drawing, which I just started, entitled Nightfall of Gonwitloof. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with ancient Belgian terminology,
We all love Endive. We all love Endive, though.
Yes, we do. So, our favorite pale, beautiful, crispy white Belgian endive, which is a wonderful substrate for classic hors d'oeuvres, goes beautifully with all grades of caviar, and is actually incredibly nutritious and has a kind of fresh, bright, and sprightly hint of green apple, and goes well with dill and smoked fish. Anyway, my drawing is on the bizarre 2-year life cycle of human induced artificial growing seasons.
Mm.
So
Put this down for a second.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure. So when the Belgian endives are first planted underground outside, they will grow an enormous taproot.
Mm.
And the taproot grows deep underground. It looks like a gnarled old elf or wizard. It's really quite a marvel. And it sprouts a lot of dark green, bushy leaves. When it grows, this top, all of the Gondwit loofs are beheaded. They are literally cut off at the neck, and only the tap roots are actually harvested, and then they are brought indoors, actually. And then they are kept under blankets, under tarps, under metal covers for an artificial night. So, a human induced artificial growing season of blackout. It is a midnight growth, and the reason is all chlorophyll is blocked. So the process of photosynthesis is not allowed to transpire. So you have a photosynthetic macroorganism that is not allowed to actually go through its ordinary life cycle, which is why it is a pale, pale white with only hints of a very pale lime green at the tips, almost none at all. It tends to kind of hang more to an ochreous color rather than even a true green. And in fact, it's forcibly grown, and in the wild, it would have a 3 to 4 year life cycle rather than the 2 year cycle, in the human world. And it is called white gold Gondwit loof, or queen of endives.
Well
Mhm.
said. Well said. Okay, so all right, and that's the piece that you're working on. Actually, yesterday, and hold on, let me just bring the drawing back up now because I wanted to kind
Sure.
of hear the process, then talk about the
Oh,
drawing.
sure, yeah. I'd
What I
love you
said
to.
yesterday,
Yes.
in
Say.
terms of this piece,
Mhm.
the piece that I'm going to highlight here, I said to Julie when I saw this piece, I said, if any real architect, right, who's ever lived, would have been envious of the ability that Julie has demonstrated in terms of her drawing in this aspect here. If you look these, it's kind of hard because it's hard, it's hard to really get the detail, which is really sad because there's so many different kind of like layers and nuances in terms of the way in which the pieces are laid down.
Thank you,
But
sweetie.
I really believe any real architect would have been incredibly envious of that rendering of that artifact. I think one of the things that I look forward to as I kind of continue my study in lyric drawings is the ability to kind of be able to kind of understand organically with such spontaneity. So again, this was an artifact that Julie kind of like looked from. But I think in terms of
Mhm.
generating artifacts, that is ultimately the ultimate drawing in terms of my belief. And I think that it's
Mhm.
certainly something that in some of my current investigations, I think I'm kind of moving towards. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah,
All right.
I will.
So say,
Thank you. I
say,
greatly,
little one.
greatly appreciate it. The object that one can observe actually here on this side here is actually a metaphor for the forced night part of the growth cycle. And what you are actually looking at here is a Chinese cloisonne piece with a creature of the night, a large bat type monster. And I have extended and stretched the golden wing right off the columnar enamel. It's actually it has two columnar sides. It's a fascinating piece on a pedestal full of very demonic creatures of the night, and under its wing will be a midnight starry sky patch that I haven't
Interesting.
even done And in this lower corner will be a Chinese cloisonne rooster, also
Now,
from the
question:
treasury.
are you going
Yes.
to put in that light blue cloisonne itself? I mean, because I know that there's quite a bit, especially in the area here, right, where there's all this really beautiful light blue. Is that going to be put in?
Well, that's an excellent
Because I really
question.
think that contrast of it's see the great thing about the taproot is its kind
Mhm.
of hoary nature and its kind
Mhm.
of like visceral aspect, as opposed to the beautiful refinement of the cloisonne piece would be a beautiful contrast.
Well, I certainly can. I don't want to compete too much with the gnarled elfin presence of the taproot. I certainly
No,
can add
I
it.
think that
Yes.
I think they
Yes.
because of the Nate, they're different. They're incredibly different natures. It'd
Yeah,
be a
certainly.
beautiful contrast.
Sure.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
thank
yeah.
you. Thank you, P,
Yeah,
for
you're welcome.
your
You're welcome, Pete.
for your kind words.
Thank you. My kind word.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So, all right. So,
I've taken out our cheese so we
oh,
don't bind our oxalates.
Exactly. You never want to. You want to always bind your oxalates.
Yes.
You want to bind them.
For all of those who are prone to kidney stones and many other oxalate related let's say afflictions, when eating high oxalate foods, and this is a tip you might not know that might help a lot of folks, always take in an equal or slightly greater amount of calcium rich food, because it binds the oxalates, which are naturally occurring sharp spiky little things that plants use for self defense, in your stomach and gut, and prevents the oxalates from entering the kidneys and forming kidney stones. It's really quite a revelation.
And if anyone ever wants to spend a pleasant afternoon or evening, there is nothing better than passing a kidney stone.
Everything is better.
It is definitely
Everything is
it
better.
is fun for all, and it's a great time for everyone.
That's why I have our Gouda. That's what I was doing. Yes. Okay. So yes.
All right. So let's get to the topic here.
Absolutely.
So what is it? Right. What are abstractions? What are they? How do we recognize them? What's their basic nature? What type of kind of formulations and kind of manifestations can they take? And what can they tell us? I think that everyone knows what an abstraction is, or at least they think know what it is. Everyone believes they see it and they use it in a kind of fairly, reasonable way. But the point is, what do they indicate about where we are? I believe that certain things are very timely. I believe everything has a temporal quality. And I think that that is something that kind of exists, not just physically, but culturally. So in that case, I think we all can kind of look at certain things and kind of understand certain abstractions that have kind of been indicative of certain circumstances in terms of that social, cultural experience. Okay, so.
Well, I would like to start at what I think is the perfect place, is Kandinsky's abstractions of classical music. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the pioneering, groundbreaking work, a career long, adventure, the Russian painter Vasily Kandinsky, who died in 1944 during World War II. He did many series of paintings, but there is a kind of a myth, and I disagree with it. I will say why. That Kandinsky's use of colors as stand ins for emotions, for psychological states of mind, for ontological presence, was actually due to synesthesia, which I don't think at all it was. This is a theory that's put forth by art historians, art critics, basically people who don't do or create art and who really don't know much about the process of those of us who do. They come from it from a very dry academic standpoint, shorn of imagination. So many people in the arts who were not synesthesia minded, which is actually kind of, how should I say, a biological state whereby a person interprets and sees and feels things and literally sees them in terms of color. You can be a brilliant painter and draftsman and just simply have a really rich, full imagination. And that is why you do this. You don't need kind of a default in your biological hard wiring.
Yeah, I would agree. I
Yeah,
think one of the
mean,
things,
it's,
is, again, with the discussion with Mr. Spock, is that there are those things
Mhm.
that kind of come up at a certain point I believe when a particular period is kind of run aground. I think one of
Mhm.
those things is the kind of lack of a kind of speculative kind of like impulse. And I think that this is something that certainly becomes the case. I think that we've gotten to a point now where there's almost a apology or a kind of uh, demonization of speculation, of projections that basically are towards the more exotic or the more provocative. And I think, one of the things that I kind of talk about with one of my science friends is the kind of dearth of real kind of investigative kind of science, given the idea of the peer review process, which isn't flawed in itself, but isn't flawed in its execution, in the fact that many times the idea of not to kind of find the more provocative pieces, but basically the more kind of like popular pieces, things that basically have, the idea is if you have 5 reviewers and 4 reviewers love it and one person hates it, it's better that you have kind of like 5 people. It seems as if the consensus idea is the idea that kind of, I think, runs us aground. I mean, I remember Frank Lloyd Wright saying that he hated competitions, would never do a competition, because what competitions did was weed out the good and bad and just find the middle. So basically, what I think happens is the two impulses in the scientific investigation is one, the 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 pull of the money for certain things, as well as the idea that the system basic rewards the commonplace, the kind of like the middle ground, and that the more interesting things basically are left for crazy people who just kind of sit alone in their basements or their garages.
It brings my saying about competitions to the fore, which is that you can shoot from the mundane hip and always be assured of hitting the quotidian.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it was interesting. We were talking
really,
about these yesterday with
yeah.
one of our CCNY friends who has just recently kind of received his diploma, and congratulations
Yes,
to
and
him.
congratulations.
Yes, and to the two of them. But when we're talking about competitions, I remember what I used to enjoy when I would do architectural competitions was I would modify the project to suit my needs based on the fact that I found, a particular interest that might have actually taken me far afield. And I remember receiving a letter from one of the competitions where I had received an honorable mention. And they said, we couldn't give you a prize because you didn't fulfill the program. However, your drawings were so beautiful, we had to give you something. And I think I always felt that what kind of leads me towards organic architecture is this idea that if one sets out to do a bridge, but one finds a way to do a beautiful tower, you have a beautiful tower. And I think, yes, there is a business side of architecture where someone says, I need for you to do me a supermarket with 40 parking spaces so people can buy their, goji berries. But that's fine. And that, again, this is technical service work. This is not architecture. So for me, the idea of the investigation in itself for that speculative aspect is, to me, that which is more interesting and really the only investigation. So in that case, go ahead. Go ahead,
I
Petey.
continue, and
I guess so.
Okay. Well, the synesthesia hypothesis aside, and I'm just going to push it right aside because that's a cop out, is really when Kandinsky's abstractions first started, and they can be traced to one night, one concert. And this is pivotal, and it basically set his whole path ablaze. And it commenced on the 2nd of January in 1911. Why can I be so specific? I am quite sure because this is when Kandinsky was introduced to the incredible work of Arnold Schoenberg. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Arnold Schoenberg, his work, it profoundly affected how Kandinsky thought, because Schoenberg's cleavage from traditional tonalities, his departure from familiar melodies, and his basically his suppression of recognizable chords. I mean, this was music in the classical vein, but it was not like any classical music anyone had ever heard. It was very, very rough going for a lot of people and inspired the precious few. So it did inspire tremendously. In fact, the first painting where Kandinsky abstracted music was painted directly after that concert and was called Impression Number Three. In parentheses, concert. I mean, there is no doubt that's what actually sparked. What was on the program? What was on the program was the premiere of Schoenberg's three piano pieces, Opus 11, and his string quartet number 2, Opus 10. So this spurred a series of pieces in Kandinsky's career, 10 major abstractions that were massive in proportion, entitled compositions, which translated and transcribed classical music into abstract visual symbols, metaphors, analogies, and symphonic paintings that no one had ever seen. Then he did many pieces in his improvisations from 1909 to 1917, and a whole series called Impression, based on about 6 or 7 pieces that concert. So we can track when Kandinsky's abstraction of music started. That's when it started.
And I'm assuming, if I'm correct, if I'm wrong, someone correct me, but I believe Schoenberg was the inventor of the 12-tone scale, which basically was
I
a kind of
think
like
so, yeah.
mate, was basically kind of allowed for certain kind of freedoms and structures and a kind of greater chromatic capacity within the music. Now, again, I'm just saying these things very crudely because I just don't. I'm not a musicologist by any means, and kind of like barely can kind of like listen to music. I love music, but it's not something I know to the degree that I know other things. I mean, I appreciate music, and I've kind of coming to kind of appreciate it even more in my later life. But
That's
I
why
do,
you have me.
yeah. But I think that there certainly was there was a revolution in music with Schoenberg, and I think that was something that possibly Kandinsky was able to kind of understand. And again, this is, I mean, again, people talk about the differences. Most people would say, oh, you can't even kind of talk to a violist if you're a cellist. But at the same time, here we have, two people, one in music and one in art, who see these abstractions as certainly consequential within their own work related to each other. We would call that art science complex, but
yes, and we do call it.
But I mean, people call these things interdisciplinary. I don't think they're interdisciplinary. I think they're just basically work within the bigger confine of the art science complex. So until a word exists that kind of confines all these things, within one kind of like word, this is how we have to state this language. I mean, we can't really kind of take this structure and kind of created because it really doesn't exist at this point.
Mhm.
But indeed a really good indication of
Mhm.
that. So it's almost like when people use a phrase that's already posthumous before it's basically used, this is the case. Anyway,
Well, yes,
continue, my little.
I definitely want to add,
Do you really?
yes, I do, that for those who don't know, this was not a tenuous connection between Schoenberg, thank you, and Kandinsky. Thank you to our sponsor,
Tease
Tease
tea.
Tea.
Jasmine tonight.
Yes, it's Jasmine night as it floats around the heady moon. It sparked a lifelong friendship between Schoenberg and Kandinsky, which most people are not aware of, and correspondence. And I am hell bent on getting my hands on some of the original correspondence between Schoenberg and Kandinsky, as one of my favorite pieces that Arnold Schoenberg ever composed. And for those of you who want cheese, have to.
I'm all for it, Pete.
Mhm. Is Transfigured Night, which will blow your mind. Here, have it. I am getting cheese. Very important. Don't eat that yet. You absolutely have to eat it with cheese.
Okay.
I am not kidding.
So these are the kind of systems that we start to see at certain point. And again, we were bringing these up because I think in the case of what we've been talking about recently, we talked about this in the organic age last week and in previous weeks, about the fact that as the institutions become the repositories of the genius of previous generations, those things eventually will have to give way to the generations to come behind them. And now what constitutes an age and what constitutes a period or whatever is really something that it's too, I think, soon to say in this case. But I do believe that what's starting to happen is more and more we're seeing people express a dissatisfaction with the institutions and the kind of formulaic kind of paradigms that are kind of created and generated to be kind of left as exercises for the individuals. And the more spirited individuals are kind of seeing these things as inconsequential and uninteresting. I mean, I remember my own investigations back in the early 80s, just looking at things and saying, I guess these investigations could have merit, but they have no absolutely no interest to me. Mm-hmm. So I think in that case, there was a certain sense of like, hey, you know what? It's time to go off on your own. So it is nice to see that dissatisfaction has continued to grow, and you kind of see more of it. And I also see, I think when we see kind of like some of the failures of certain things, complete collapses, we start to realize that like these would be a natural occurrence as things become inertial. So back to you, P.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I have a lot to add here.
So.
Okay. Yes.
This is so interesting.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about the darker side of abstraction. Hold on to your pantaloons, everybody. Mm-hmm. So, Atomy games. Now, Atomy games, as OTOME, have become...
Is that like Special Olympics?
Hardly. Have become the twisted, superficial, virtual abstraction of love, romance, and real relationships with men for legions of Chinese women. So these Atomy games are wildly popular as, and this is my take on them, abstractions of lost emotions, abstractions of intangible absence, and artificial abstractions of genuine organic relationships and complex feelings. What? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Bruce, are you being
I was just raising my hand to ask a question.
Sure.
Are these current?
Is this historic? Yeah, okay, this is an ongoing
current
now.
Interesting. All right.
They're hugely popular, and they are abstractions which are devoid of modulation shorn of true nuance, stripped of all meaning and intrinsic worth. So sometimes, yeah.
Explain for us.
Well, these are virtual games
Ah.
where a romance is set up with a man who doesn't exist, who's crafted by artificial intelligence,
Mhm.
who supposedly understands a human woman, and she falls in love. There are legions of women falling in love with AI Atomi generated men. So, this, to my mind, is a very dark side of the abstraction of love. That's 4-month aged goat Dutch Gouda.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
So just be sure not to.
so you're saying that
Yes,
this artificial man
ma'am. Yeah. Mhm.
understands women.
Well, they don't, because they don't actually exist.
No, I know, but I'm
Mm.
saying, was that the intention, or was that is that part of the premise? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
The premise.
Well, that makes sense because no man has ever understood a woman.
No.
So it's possible that somebody else could. I mean,
But the premise is there are legions of women, and these are hugely popular in China. I'm not sure why China. I mean, they are played in Japan and other places.
mhm.
Of
Interesting.
of real flesh and blood live women
Mhm.
who are meeting, dating, falling in love with, being romanced by, and having a delusional, artificially generated love affair and a romance that goes through progressive stages. Some of them even marry them, but
Oh,
they
wait,
don't
I've heard
exist.
of this.
Yeah,
I've heard of this. I've
Yeah,
heard
yeah.
of this. Yes, and they
Yeah.
have ceremonies, the whole thing.
Oh no, it's
Okay.
really incredibly
There's
creepy.
nothing mentally unhealthy about this at all.
No, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is super good. Anyway,
Interesting.
no, please. That is to me one of the darker sides of abstraction, where real emotions,
Mhm.
real psychological states are vaulted past what a human mind can process, to a world that doesn't really, how should I say, really understand the full complexity of the human mind, because it can't. But it's a pantomime of love, a pantomime of romance, and in fact a pantomime of life.
Hmm.
You obviously are
So-
fond of this cheese, yes.
The women are aware of the fact that this is AI.
Oh my god, yeah. They are paying to use this game.
Oh, I see.
Oh yeah,
I see.
yeah.
I see. I see.
They're very anxiously using it and buying it.
You know, it's funny. I think
You can check it out.
having lived in the real world when it was real, I never had the inkling, though I was suspicious of some, that any of my female companions in my life were not indeed real. Some of them
Yeah.
were, cold as stone, and they had,
They were all too real.
they're, exactly. But, again, this is my fault. It was my fault for not knowing better
I think you
about what
ate
I was
my
doing.
cheese.
Sorry, Pete.
That's okay.
But I find, in a way, I
Just
find
be
this
careful.
incredibly fascinating.
Oh
that,
yeah.
that people
Mhm.
have been able to kind of take out the essence of your own existence.
Mhm.
I mean, from an ontological point of view, this is fascinating.
Yeah.
When you see, you hear these crazy stories where the guy's in love with his car, or he's in love with his kind of like some, and you're like, he knows he's just faking it, and it's bizarre.
Yeah.
And he's just doing it for attention. But I can see in this natural situation where there's a kind of like back and forth, that just like any game, you can start to get caught up in it. I mean, because a game is in itself an abstraction of life. you're taking something and you're isolating certain principles within this limited frame. So it's amazing. It's astonishing. So it's the idea that you can project onto these things,
and
these things that kind of become incredibly tangible. So I can understand at a certain point when you start to think, hey, wait a minute. It's easy to lose that knowledge of what you kind of take for granted, which is this thing isn't real. But again, as we know, it is real, right? It may not be human, but it exists as an entity. And I mean, one of the things I remember when I was reading, I think it was Descartes' Meditations, where he talked about the reality of dreams, and that dreams weren't physically tangible, but they were certainly kind of intellectually tangible. And that to me was fascinating, that these things exist and are real. So you can't ever meet this person or kind of like, kind of go on a date or walking hand in hand on, but you can literally fall in love with it. I mean, that to me that's astonishingly fascinating, because they become, and especially, one of the things that happens is people say, hey, why do you, in fact, we're asked tonight, it's like, you guys are night owls. And we talked about the idea that, New York City, where we live, was once the city that never slept. And now basically it goes to bed, now it goes to bed early and takes a nap in the afternoon because it's a little bit older now.
Like Florida, like
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like, we're all eating dinner at the smorgasbord at 4:30 in the afternoon.
So I think that idea that this thing becomes that entity. But we tell people, like, the reason why we do the program at 2:00 in the morning is because we see people and have people that we know that are in different parts of the world. And in fact, it's a good time because the only people who aren't finding this accessible are the people who live in the Atlantic Ocean, because that's where it's nighttime. So, even though it's dark where we are, in a few hours, people will be waking up. And in fact, it's only 11 o'clock in California, or now it's 11:45. And it's, it's been day in China and Japan, so again, most of our friends who aren't in New York City,
it's 9 o'clock in the morning in Europe.
So. Yeah, exactly. It's already daytime. In fact, I mean, my co-author, who I'll be talking to in a couple of hours, she's already awake. So, these are the things. So the only people that we're missing out right now are the people who are in cruise ships,
or the boring people who don't stay up late.
Right, exactly.
Well, also, this is the prime hour for creativity for those of us who have active and robust and bold imaginations. This is the hour of our Pimpernel. And I referred to the Scarlet Pimpernel. And for any of those who are not on...
Oh, well done.
Thank you. You were not big fans of Leslie Howard, who was amazing.
Brilliant.
Who was actually a spy in World War II and was murdered.
As was I.
You made quite a comeback.
I was beheaded.
Yeah.
No, it's true.
Well.
Yep.
Well, his character rescued many nobles from losing their heads in the French Revolution. That was the plot. Yes. Anyway, shall I continue?
Yes. This is fascinating.
Isn't this interesting?
Yes, I love this.
Yeah,
we got tea, we have chocolate. We have tea, we have chocolate, we have...
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Oh.
You know what? I should probably move my drawing back, and then we can...
Yes, because we don't want to get the oil from here.
Yeah. Okay.
So, again, we start to see these things as indicative of certain circumstances that kind of become not only something that we can look back and see these things in relationship to other times, we can start to see them as things that not only show our time, but kind of can become prophecy in the fact that they start to kind of give hints as to those things that are to come. Because I believe what happens is we may unconsciously start to give rise to what our desires are in terms of the fact that we can foresee to an aspects of our destiny. Now, this doesn't seem to be hard to believe, considering the fact that what happens is we do know that at a certain point, those people who will be able to become consequential within a specific time are so because of the fact that they understand that time.
Mm.
But the idea that they could presuppose, right, is certainly reasonable in the fact that, like, it is somewhat invisible what the destiny is, and it has to be configured within a speculative aspect. So again, going back to the idea that
Mm.
we've talked about, is that
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that stifles us is the fact that we are not trying to kind of use that in terms of kind of seeing
Mm-hmm.
what could potentially lay ahead of us.
So I would like to speak about what I call the Russian nesting doll of abstraction. Hold on to your pantaloons,
and
everybody.
I'm not going to forbid it.
Well, good, because I certainly won't allow that.
No, we
I'll
won't.
poke you.
We won't stand for that.
I'll poke
You
you
know,
in
wearing
your logo.
wearing
Oh,
Uncle
yes.
Lou's.
Yes.
Uncle Lou, go see Larry. Go
Yes.
to Chinatown.
Uncle Lou is a wonderful restaurant. Anyway, I want to launch into this.
Go.
We are running out of time.
Oh my God! Where did it go
I have
tonight?
a lot to cover.
Where did it go? I can't believe it's already 45.
I need to
go.
launch.
Yes, we'll have to probably do a second part.
I need to launch. Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to talk about Wagashi sample books.
Nice.
Okay. The Russian nesting doll of abstraction. For those of you unfamiliar, I will just make it quick. So, wagashi are seasonal, almost entirely vegan. Just happen to be Japanese confections, which date to the 16th century, are eaten with matcha or sencha. They are part of the tea culture and historical tea ceremony in Japan.
And part of our tea culture is tea.
Yes, it is, and it's wonderful actually if you can find wagashi. Anyway, so there are ancient illustrated guides for confectioners in Japan that were abstractions of these confections. These are made with white bean paste and agar agar, which is made from seaweed. They are made with chestnuts. There are pickled cherry leaves. There's mochi rice. They are fascinating. They are the avatars of the perfection of the seasons. So these sample books, think of a wallpaper sample book. Think of a sample book of wood used in high-end flooring. Think of architectural sample books. So these beautiful sample books are abstractions of confections, which are in themselves abstractions of nature, which are abstractions of everything that is contained in all four seasons. How is that for a Russian nesting doll of abstraction? Yes.
I miss Taraya.
Well, I do too, and that was a great place.
A great place for wagashi.
So these wagashi sample books are made of hand printed wood blocks with graphicized versions of the confections.
Mm-hmm.
So they are poster-like abstractions of the confections made by traditional confectioners. So would you like to add to that, this?
No. I'm likely to kind of get hurt. No, it's interesting because I think, again, these are the kind of things that you start to see as those kind of like, kind of messages that are left for the curious and imaginative individual to come across, to start to see the things that can forge the age. So I think when you see these things, this not this specific thing, but the idea that we started to talk before about that, what was it called? The Looney game or whatever it's called?
The Otomi
games. So is that these realities that start to manifest themselves may not be unique in themselves, but are unique in context. And I think a lot of times there's this mistake that someone says, oh, it's been done before. But the point is, done before doesn't necessarily make sense. And the fact that nothing's done at the same time simultaneously forever.
No, it's
and I mean,
not.
Again, as Heraclitus says, you never walk in the same river twice. because you're not the same, nor is the river.
I
So-
don't because I'm skating on an adjacent pond.
Yes, of agar agar.
Yeah, nicely
No,
done.
right?
That was
right?
nicely.
That, honestly, that might
That
have been
was
my best
good.
moment. That might have been my best
I
moment.
love
Isn't that?
food and
I mean, that was
science
a
humor.
seasonal
That
wagashi.
was.
Oh,
you're
that was-
so witty. That's why I love
we have
you.
to take a moment.
We do. Oh.
Okay. All right. So
Okay, I have to cover this.
I think you wanted me to talk.
I do.
Oh, that's right. It was like the last time. I only pretended to want you to talk.
talk.
You sure?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So in this case, the
Mhm.
idea is, what is that circumstance that gives this a certain consequence
Mhm.
that is particular to this? So that is the piece that makes you the individual that kind of like gets to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Back to my logo.
Oh, said so well.
It's part of being me.
No, please continue.
Oh, that
Do
was
you
it.
have
I'm
more
going-
to say?
No. I'll
Okay.
have more to say and wrap up.
okay.
But anyway, I can't believe it. We talked.
Yeah,
This
I know.
went
It's
so
just fast.
fast. This
Okay,
is-
I will say this because it's critical to get this in. It is mind blowing.
Uh-huh.
So I'm going to speak very briefly about a large topic: abstract thinking in the short-beaked echidna. And you heard me
Oh, I
right.
love this.
It is a monotreme. So it has characteristics of a reptile and a mammal, and in fact is an egg layer. So it just blows all of the stereotypes. And because it has a very rustic look, it was assumed to be a moron. Now, there are people who have a rustic look who are imbecilic. This is not one of those creatures. It turns out that the short-beaked echidna's potential for abstract thinking is vast, I posit, because it has the largest prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain in mammals and us, which is responsible for abstract thought and reasoning and logic. It has the largest one relative to its body size of any mammal, including humans. So it takes up to 50% of the brain mass of the short-beaked echidna, this prefrontal cortex, as compared to only 29% in the human brain. What does that mean? It means also that they have been observed to experience REM sleep, meaning they are actively dreaming. And dreaming is abstract thoughts. So, and when people try to keep them as pets, guess what the short-beaked echidnas do? They will stack all of their food trays in just the right way to escape and climb out of their box. And they do that all the time. So anyway.
I gotta try that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I gotta try that.
I'll hand you all your food trays. You can stack them up.
Yeah. Okay.
On
So-
you.
Yeah. So what I think we're seeing is the fact that one of the things I think, if you watched our shows before and you kind of come across this one as kind of fairly broad in terms of the scope, there's some times when we'll talk about a specific thing, and there's other times like this when we'll basically see it as a jumping off point for kind of like just stories or ideas or circumstances that are pertinent. However, I do believe that what we do here, and we have done tonight, is tie it back to things based on where we're headed in terms of the overall plan of the projects.
Yes.
So I think that we have kind of brought up these things within the context, but we haven't said, oh, we're not here to kind of like give anything specific. The realm of ideas is free to all is to basically say, hey, we're two people who do these ruminations. And these ruminations may be of kind of interest to you in the fact that they stimulate your own imagination, or you feel that there's a desire within yourself to do the same. So this is a good indication of exactly that. So I think that one of the things that I hope people start to take away from this is we never, ever want to say that this is what things are. But these are the things we believe us make a certain amount of sense. A lot of times people will come up to me, I don't know why, because it's insane, to say, hey, how would you handle this, or how would you, or how have you handled this, or how have you handled that? I will never give anyone advice because, in fact, having made every single mistake one can make, I would
Oh,
say don't.
You're too modest.
True, that's true. I've actually made some mistakes that weren't even within the realm of possibilities. And it's like, but I think in that case, the term is, you know, I have basically, if a mistake could have been made, I've probably made it.
You
But
kind of
so I would
have
say
a scrapbook of them.
exactly. So I
Yeah.
would say don't do what I did. But what I would do is sometimes say, in my circumstance, given this situation,
Mhm.
this is what I did. Now it's
Mhm.
not to I mean, all joking aside, it's not to dissuade or sway. It's basically to get someone to understand, given this circumstance, given my insertion into it, these were the things that made sense, and these were the things that were suspect, or these are the things I concern myself with. So I think in that case, here we are at this precipice. I believe, I mean, I'm not even sure how much Julie agrees, but I
I
believe
will let you know.
we are at what I would say the precipice of an organic age. I believe that there's the indications. I may see it sooner. It may not happen for 50 years, but I do believe we are in that position where this uh, kind of offloading of aspects of the human reality will further this kind of skepticism of the anthropocentrism of that we kind of like instilled in our environment. And ontologically, I do believe as a result of doing that, an organic idiom will at least start to will start to react to that circumstance. So, last words for my loved one.
Yes, I have an assignment for all of you. This is an assignment of sublime abstraction of something that was lost, that in your own mind's eye you may be able to reimagine or reconstruct. Out of Kandinsky's 10 massive abstract musical compositions, the series done between 1910 and the outbreak of World War II, numbers 1, 2, and 3 were destroyed in World War II.
So we redo them.
So, my challenge to all of you is, what do you see as Kandinsky's compositions 1, 2, and 3, abstracting that concert of Schoenberg's that we know sparked Kandinsky's lifelong obsession with the abstraction of classical music?
Good. All right. So, given this, right, the next two episodes are the following. The next week, it's the loss of criticism and the unbreakable bond at risk. And then after that, the concern for criticism. And then after that, stay free first over safety. So the reality is, at this point, we've given rise to this aspect of this place that we find ourselves. But at the same time, we're going to step back and say, we are at risk in losing one of the tools that's instrumental in us being who we need to be in order to kind of manifest that which is upon us. So, the realm of ideas is free to all, and it's to the benefit of all for us to see it and keep it just that way.
Abstractly and precisely.
Stay free.